What's up, everybody? Welcome to Transcending Veils, episode 2 tonight. I am your host, Audra Moon, along with my fabulous co-host,
D.E.
David.
Riley. Hi.
Hi.
Hi. How are you doing, Audra?
It has been a week. It has been a week, and we have ran into multiple technical issues
Uh,
trying to get this podcast rolling for episode 2. So thankfully, we got most of the bugs worked out here.
and I was talking to someone last week, and they were saying that they had started doing a podcast months ago, and they just ran into nothing but problems to the point where they just quit doing it. It was just one thing after another. And I know you and I have tried like 3 or 4 different apps trying to get what we want, and even combinations of different apps, and we just cannot seem to hit on the right one. But we're going to keep trying until we get it. So, with that, what's on the menu for tonight? What do we want to talk about?
So tonight we are talking the dark side of religion, i.e., mostly your infamous suicide cults.
Uh-huh. That sounds like fun. Where do we want to start? That's the big question.
Well, we've got quite a few that we could very well cover. The biggest one that, and the most infamous one, excuse me, can't talk today, must be the heat, um, is the Jonestown Massacre.
Okay.
That took place in, um, why do I want to say Uganda? That's not the right one. It's not Uganda. The People's Temple. uh, the
uh,
people's the People's Temple. It was actually in Ghana. I don't. That's why I wanted to say Uganda. They're close.
right.
Now, uh, Jim Jones was a sick son of a bitch. Um, but he was, he was clever and he was charming and he was certainly, a man of the people. Now in Jonestown, you are talking about, a mass suicide. The term drinking the Kool-Aid came right from there.
Right.
Um, Now, in Jonestown, uh, we had, I believe Jonestown happened uh, in the 1970s, 1978. So back in 1978, uh, Jonestown was when uh, they were all forced to drink the Kool-Aid, and you had almost, 1,000 people who were killed, men, women, and children, infants even. It really was. It really was it was a sight, and I
How
mean,
did
you.
how in the world did all this start? I mean, how can a person be that charismatic to draw that number of people in and and get them to follow him like that? I mean, what was the process he went through? Now, I'm assuming this started years before, the culmination, the end
Oh,
of it. So, what? How did that all come about?
absolutely. So, Jonestown. Jim Jones, actually, as a young kid, he was he was an entertainer. He knew how to entertain people. He knew how to, um, draw in a crowd. But at the same time, he was also very sick in the head. He idolized Hitler and Hitler's drive for committing suicide when the masses were closing in on him. Um, the other thing with Jim Jones was he was actually he went on to become a minister, and one way to uh, get people's attention back then was the political issues that were going on. And this is back in the 1950s when he was actually, um, he became a minister.
All right.
He, back in the 1950s, what was the most prevalent social issue? Racism. Uh, his congregation was predominantly African American,
All right.
and he played off of the war on racism, and he played off of these people's need to feel a sense of belonging, and like someone really cared about their situation. Um, so that's how he was able to lure so many people into his congregation.
So it's just it's basically tell them what they want to hear, give them what they want, um,
Exactly.
prey on that weakness to get them
Mm-hmm.
there, and then once you've got them there, then they're your puppets, I guess. And it sounds ridiculous, to be quite
It
honest with
does.
you. It really does. I mean, these are, and I'm sure it's there were highly intelligent people in here, you know, well educated people, and and just to be suckered in like that, and to buy it hook, line, and sinker, because obviously, I mean, the fortune this guy amassed in order to move uh, to uh, Guyana, right? Um,
Yep.
is he had to get that from them. He had to, right?
Yes. So with Jim Jones, um, so he built this congregation because he preached unconventional socialist and progressive ideas. So, like I said, a predominantly African American congregation. Um, Now, at the height of his popularity during the 1970s, uh, they had an estimated, their membership was estimated within the thousands.
Oh my God,
Now,
that many.
yes. Now, the problem was they went through, Jim Jones was being investigated for quite a few suspicious activities, including child abuse, um, fraud, and because of that, he and numerous followers of his moved to a settlement which was dubbed Jonestown in uh, in Guyana, which was in Venezuela. So he actually, he preached to them. He was bringing them to paradise. He was offering them paradise and a place that was free and everyone works together and they don't have to be plagued with, racial injustice and all of that, and the worries of the modern world. When in reality, he was just trying to save his own ass from being investigated.
Yeah. So
So,
that's and I mean in '78 when all of that kind of came down, I was like 18, 22 years old, 21, 22 years old.
mhm.
And I remember, seeing it on TV. Now, I had no idea at that time what led up to that, but I do remember seeing the reports, being aired on TV
Yes.
of the suicide, the mass suicide. But
Yep.
it was dum dum dum. Who Congressman Ryan, is that correct? That went
Yes.
there to investigate them. Um,
He did.
and
He went
when
there to investigate because of people who were former members were coming to him very concerned for their loved ones that were still in uh, Jonestown.
Why? I mean, they're living in paradise now, right? Why would they be concerned?
So the family members had escaped, had broken away from the People's Temple due to, the underhanded deeds of Jim Jones, whether it was child abuse or um, the fraud and how he would manipulate people. There were quite a few who did separate from the People's Temple, but their family members did not. So when he was being investigated and he moved everybody to Guyana, he the family members were very concerned. They couldn't get in touch with the people who were still in there, and they were aware of Jim Jones's sinister side. So they
So
had they had gone to Congressman Ryan, and they demanded an investigation. So sure enough, eventually, he went on ahead and you know he had taken a couple of journalists with him as well to document everything.
yeah, see, if I remember correctly, it seemed like there was God, I don't know how many journalists he took with him, but at least a half a dozen. You know,
Yes.
there was quite a few people there with him. Uh, uh, investigating this mess. That much I do remember, but I remember the that the aftermath when they were trying to get away, because you can still look that up on YouTube. I mean, it's still out there.
The footage is there.
And what led up to that? I mean, if they go and investigate, and I guess everything was copacetic to a certain degree, and or I don't know, and they started to leave, and all of a sudden they get ambushed by a bunch of people, or what was it again?
So him and the journalist had gotten ambushed by Jim Jones's armed security. Now, the reason why, uh, they were killed and they were put in that position was, I believe, there were testimonies of someone had slipped the congressman a note saying, "Help me." So with that being said, the congressman knew something was up, and he had asked if anyone would like to leave and go back to the United States with him. And a few members stepped forward. Now, him doing this right in front of Jim Jones
Ooh.
isn't Jim Jones isn't gonna, jump up and be like, "Hey, what are you doing?" Like, he's not gonna incriminate himself that way.
Yeah.
So he nodded and told them that they were free to go if they wanted to go. So because of that, the congressman knew something was wrong. Jim Jones had figured out that someone was going to tell the secrets of Jonestown, and he had them killed as they had arrived to their helicopters or their planes. I'm sorry, not helicopters. It was a plane.
Now, this seemed the whole mass suicide, and how many people was it in all that took their own lives or ended up dead there at Jonestown?
916.
916. That would have to have been orchestrated ahead of time. They had to, because you just don't say, "Hey, come here,"
Absolutely not.
There had to be some kind of practice involved in all of that.
Yes. believe it or not, the majority of suicide cults will have practice runs. So, uh, what would happen is they would have like drills, and he would actually make his congregation practice for a mass suicide. He actually had called it the White Knight,
Hmm.
which if he had called White Knight, that was, you know, that was no longer a drill. They were practicing for White Knight, just like people would practice for Armageddon, you know?
Right. Right.
So,
Yeah, I just, like I said, I remember, seeing it on the news and was just completely shocked by the amount of carnage. I mean, it was just, I had never seen anything like that before. And I grew up at a time where, the Vietnam War came on every night at 6 o'clock on the news. You were used to seeing, you became numb after a while to
absolutely.
seeing the death and the man's inhumanity to man, and then you see something like that, and it's just totally different. It's just totally different. These
Yes.
people walked into this. Some of them willing. I'm sure some of them had to be forced. Um, but I'll never forget that. How I was just in shock. Looking at that.
Absolutely. It's unfathomable to think that that many people can be so devout to their leader that they would just, you know, drink the Kool-Aid, which actually, believe it or not, real, like actual Jonestown survivors hate that term. They hate the term drinking the Kool-Aid. And they actually find it highly offensive.
Hmm.
Um, they do. It's. I mean, I can understand. There's probably a huge level of PTSD that's linked with that.
No, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Now I'm gonna kind of get off topic a little bit, but it's going to still involve the same thing. Okay. We've we've discussed before, you and I, at length about um, what is it? What draws people to murder? And I don't mean makes them murder other people, attracts them to murder. I mean, my wife, I love her to death, but believe me, there's times when she scares the shit out of me. This lady watches murder mysteries and murder shows and constantly, non-stop. She chain watches this stuff. She is absolutely infatuated with murder,
Yeah.
as is the probably the majority of the population, because there's no better selling books, there's no better selling movies. Um, there's the highest rated shows on TV have to do with murder. It's just murder,
Yeah.
murder, 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 and people are infatuated with it. Now, it doesn't mean they're going to go out and do it. That is a whole another type of psyche. But what is that gene that attracts everyone to murder?
And we have talked about this, and I've given you my input. I do firmly stand with, you know, human beings. What are we? We're animals. You know, we are. No matter which way you look at it, we are, although an intelligent species of animal, we are still animals. And what is one common thing um, with animals? It is the fight to survive, and it is also this primal instinct to kill. And every human being has that. Now, I'm going to get into a little bit of biology here. Um, if you think about it, you have your food chain, okay? Um, you have your carnivores, which eat meat. You have your omnivores that eat both plants and meat. And then you have your herbivores, which eat plants. They eat plant life. So we fall because the vast majority of us, and I don't care if you're vegan or vegetarian, you weren't born that way.
Mm-hmm.
That is a life choice. So you are born an omnivore. You want, obviously plants, but meat. And if you are a dumb animal, your instinct to get that meat would be to kill.
Right.
So it it dates back millions of and millions of years in every species. We are just right smack dab in the middle of the food chain, but because intellectually, we know it's not right to kill, we, for the most part, our morals kick in and we don't act upon it. But primal instinct in everybody is to kill. Everybody has that instinct, and everybody's born with it. So that's where I think the fascination lies with, everyone being obsessed with murder.
Right.
Everybody. And I mean, don't get me wrong, there are people out there who are like, oh my god, it's so terrible, I can't look, I can't see it, I can't hear about it. But deep down, they still have that instinct.
Oh yeah.
So it still freaks them.
Yeah, they're the ones that are watching the CSI shows, and
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it's funny because I actually last night I did a TikTok live, and it took kind of a dark turn. We were discussing horror movies, and somehow it ended up into like how I said I'm so desensitized because I've seen so much real shit out there that horror movies just don't get me anymore. So then people started asking, well, what kind of real things have you seen? And I've discussed vaguely, considering it was TikTok and I'd get banned. I discussed vaguely some of the things that I have seen, and I had expressed, once you start watching one, you go down the rabbit hole, and you can't help it. And again, that's that instinct, that's that it's that curiosity, because I've definitely ventured down that rabbit hole, and then the next thing you know, my husband's going to work and he's going, my wife watches snuff films. I could have killed him. I tried to show him one thing, a drug cartel, and he goes to work and he's like, yeah, my wife sits at home and watches snuff films for fun. Thanks.
Not quite the same thing.
That's what I tried to explain to him, but he doesn't get it. But I think I scare him too. So it's
yeah, yeah. But that, I mean, it just fascinates me. The fascination that people have, because I mean, right now, if I walk downstairs right now, I guarantee you, I know what my wife is watching. She's watching Midsummer Murders, which is on BBC, and it's a British murder mystery, kind of Agatha Christie style type thing. So I know that's exactly what she's watching downstairs. And I mean, that's her deal. She loves that more than anything else. But getting back now to Jonestown, the aftermath. Okay, the congressman and the group of reporters were gunned down on the airstrip, right?
Yes, they were.
Okay. and the funny thing is they have video of that. I mean, one of the journalists was videotaping the whole thing,
Yes,
so you see everything happen, and it is just it's just crazy. But
it is.
are there
It's
still people who are in the the Jones cult? Are there still people? I know there are, as far as Manson goes, you know,
yes.
but are there still like people in that cult that still believe in his message and his dream?
So to answer that question, I have. So you would think I would have dove a lot more into um, that with the survivors and stuff. I have seen a lot. I have seen a lot of survivors who were just thankful to make it out. But I do believe that there was one specific documentary. I can't remember which one because, like you said, you can pinpoint your wife's shows, and mine are usually like the dark, like deep web documentaries of like suicide cults and mass
Right.
murders. So I can't remember what documentary specifically it was, but there was one guy on there who still, um, believed in what uh, Jim Jones preached. Um, and then there was also another documentary that I had seen where they had actually taken, I think, two of the survivors back to the Jonestown site.
Oh my gosh, that had to
Yes,
be that
like
had to be
years later. And I believe that was filmed in like 2008, 2009. So it really wasn't that long ago.
I can't imagine what they went through. I mean, that had to be just traumatizing. Why would you even agree to do that? I don't know. I don't know. I don't have an answer. The thing is, you look at these suicide cults, these murder cults, and they're just riddled with very intelligent people, very well off people. Some of them had brilliant careers. They're not just a bunch of dumb Bigfoot chasing hicks. I mean, and I'm not saying there's not a big. I'm not getting into that, but you know what I mean. They're intelligent people. For the most part,
Absolutely.
they're very intelligent people. They're not idiots. And how they
Nope.
can get brought into that, and how do you get out? You hear people trying to get out, but in some of them, and I think it's been brought to the forefront so much that it makes it a little easier if you want to get out now than it was back then. And correct me if I'm wrong. I'm speculating on all of this, but
Mhm.
uh, just the and the thing about it is he had them in a foreign country. He had them in a compound built in a foreign country. So getting away was just damn near impossible at that point. You were stuck there whether you wanted to be there or not. Um,
Yeah.
but so that on that part, that was a brilliant move. Excuse me, that was a brilliant move on his part was to do that. But it
He also took everything away from them, not only just moving them. He took everything away from them, like even their children. If a woman ended up pregnant um, in Jonestown, that baby was taken at birth, and that was Jim Jones's child. Um, and it was almost like the parents had, no rights to their children.
right.
He did not, he frowned upon um, interrelations within his compound, so these people, he basically strip them of everything to make them just one whole working unit for him. And the children were all of his, and everyone else was his followers. And it's just, you strip people of everything, and you hold something over them. You know, like if they were to leave, I know that there were threats of, well, you'll be gunned down because of your race. You'll never be free out there in America, you know. And you put fear into them. Even if they are devout and loyal followers, you put fear into them. And that's how you keep, you know, you can herd your flock wherever you want them to go and to do whatever you want them to do.
And that seems to be a common thread between a lot of these is the multiple marriages and the marriages to children and the children being born and then being literally given over to this person or to this church, you know. And it happened in Waco with David Koresh. It's the same exact scenario, you know, where he got to the point where he was God, you know. He was the reincarnate of Jesus Christ, and he actually thought that, and you know, and it always ends the same way, you know. It always ends badly, and it's just, you hate seeing people get wrapped into that, because it's like you just want to, you know, grab them by the collar and slap the living shit out of them and go, come on, you know, wake the fuck up, you know, this is not going to end good for you, you know. But like I said, these are intelligent people, and they get wrapped up in it, you know. Now there was
they're stripped of a sense of identity, which is, you know, one of the biggest things in these, you know, communes and any cults that you hear about. They're all stripped of identity.
Yeah, it sounds like, you know, you kind of become the possession of that cult or that church or whatever you want to call it. You know, it's
Yep.
and you know, cults. Don't get me wrong, cults have been around forever. Since the beginning of time, there have been cults. You know, and I know that there's going to be a lot of heat I'm going to take for this next statement, but that's cool. I don't care. But you know, Christianity was a cult when that first started out. You know, it all, and that's been around for centuries now. You know, and people are still buying into that. They're still believing that. They're you know, um, um, you know, it's the Muslim religion, centuries, been around for centuries, and it always starts as a cult and builds off of that. So I kind of in a way think that these people think they're breaking new ground, and they're making a new world, you know, and they're building a new world for their followers, just like Jesus did, or just like Muhammad did, or just like you know, Buddha did, or whatever, you know, whatever you choose to believe in. But it all starts with that, you know, a faction that breaks off from the norm and starts building its own power and its own society and its own followers and its own believers, and you know, which, you know, if you're in a situation where, you know, life is in dire straits, and you need to find that thing to hold on to, I could understand, you know, how you could be duped into following people like that. You know, I can fully understand that. You know, it's either I follow this guy and maybe he's got a plan and maybe he can save me, or, you know, I'm going to blow my head off, you know, one of the two. And, you know, they buy into whatever these people are selling. Um, Now, this back, this as far as murder suicide cults go, I ran across one not too long ago that I had never heard of, it was a surprise and a shock to me when I started doing research on this. But it was called, now when was Jonestown again? I'm sorry, I want to get another date on that.
Jonestown was in 1978.
Okay, so that's back in '78. Okay, so it was around that same time period that this movement started um, in Africa, uh, and this was in Uganda, and the movement itself, and this is a mouthful, was called the Movement for the Restoration of the Ten Commandments of God. Now, they believed that if you stuck strictly and lived strictly by the Ten Commandments, that when the apocalypse came, when the rapture came, you would be saved. Um, it was started by a couple of people, and they were actually fell out of the Catholic Church due to differences in opinion. But one of them, actually two of them, I take that back. And you have to forgive me for the names because these are foreign on my southern tongue. But Credonia Mirende and Joseph Kibwitiri, they're both from southwestern Uganda, started preaching that they had seen visions of the Virgin Mary. And they started building a following off of that. A lot of people were disgusted with the Catholic Church at this time. There was a lot of corruption in the Catholic Church. And in Uganda at that time, it's like the end of the world was really there. I mean, you had Idi Amin was the ruler. You had the AIDS pandemic just running rampant through that country. And then you had a Bush war going on top of that. So it was like, the whole world is falling apart anyway. These people had to believe in something. And they started a movement. And they started picking up like ex-Catholic priests who had been thrown out of the church for one reason or another. And they started building quite a following of ex-Catholics, and it was based on the Catholic religion. But they were so had become so fanatical, I guess is the word, if that is the right word, about following this, that they even, on the ninth commandment says, "Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor." Some of them quit talking. They quit communicating verbally just so they wouldn't break that commandment. So they made up their own sign language to take over for, when they didn't talk. They never ate meat on Fridays. Here's a Catholic coming in. Sex was completely forbidden in this, which was real unusual because usually with your big cults, that's kind of an underlying thing.
It's like an unspoken rule. Like everybody has to have sexual relations with their leader, otherwise they don't really believe them.
Exactly, but it was strictly forbidden in this one, so that was like totally off the table. They grew and grew and grew, and it was just astounding how many people were actually following these people across Uganda. They had several different churches set up where these people would go and worship. And the thing about it was they preached that the end of times was coming soon. When was that end of times coming? Well, according to a vision that one of the leaders had, it was going to be December 31st, 1999. Okay, New Year's Eve on the the changing of the millennium. Okay, that's when the world was going to end. That was going to be it. It was going to be all over with.
Yeah.
So everybody like was getting ready. They were preparing. They wrote their loved ones and told them goodbye and that they were leaving. Um, and uh, the whole group kind of compared themselves to Noah's Ark. That there was this righteousness that they were going to sail away on and be lifted to heaven on that night. Well, it didn't happen, right? I mean, it came and went, and we thought all the computers were going to shut down, and they didn't, and we thought the power grid was going to go down, and it didn't, and we thought we were going to be out of water, and we weren't. Nothing happened. It was just another day. Uh-oh. What do we do now? All of a sudden, now they've got their followers diving. I mean, they are leaving left and right. They are taking and wanting, demanding all their money and possessions that these people had taken. And they took literally everything from these people. Now, Uganda is not a rich country by any means. But they still preyed on these people, and they took everything from them to be involved in this church. And I mean, the Catholic Church is even trying to get them, to get shut down. I mean, they were going to the authorities trying to shut these people down, and they just would not do it. So. What happens is they have, very conveniently I might add, they have another vision of Jesus Christ, Virgin Mary, and Saint Joseph. I mean, they got the trifecta going on now, right? They got the.
Well, in other words, they're like, okay, so nobody believes us. They know we're full of shit. So now, Plan B.
Right, exactly. We're going to Plan B, and I got the big three here that are going to guide us into Plan B, and they what they did was they turn around and they set a new date. They actually said, okay, we were wrong, but according now to the big three up here, the new date is going to be March 17th of the year 2000. That's the new date. We swear. This is when you're going to die. Okay. So yeah, St. Patrick's Day. So this is when the end is going to come, is on this date, March 17th of 2000. So what they did was they planned this huge party. Okay. And I mean, it was a huge party. They roasted like 3 bulls. They had over 70 crates of soft drinks delivered to this party. There was members from nearby villages coming in. There were just packed into this building for this party. And all of a sudden, the place bursts into flames. I mean, just boom. The people in nearby villages said they heard an explosion, and the building was literally gutted with 530 people inside, and the doors and the windows had all been boarded shut, so nobody could get out. 530 men, women, and children perished in this fire. And I've seen the pictures of this, and it's not pretty at all. I mean, it absolutely not. It's just terrible. I can't imagine, what the panic and the terror that went through these people as they discovered there's no way out. This is it. It is the end of the world now.
Yeah. In that building,
Yeah, and now the later on they had found out through investigation that several days before that the leader of the movement, Dominique Katari Babo, was seen buying 50 liters of sulfuric acid. What do you need 50 liters of sulfuric acid for? They're thinking, okay, this is what this guy started the fire with. So this was planned out well ahead of time, okay? They had this all ready to go. Now, there was 5 principal leaders in this cult whose names I'm not going to go over because it hurts my tongue trying to say all of them. But at first, it was assumed that they had all perished in this fire. But as the investigation went on, they're going, you know what? We're not sure if they're in there or not. Well, where are they? You know? And people started asking questions. And next thing you know, the government of Uganda is putting out arrest warrants for these 5 people because now they've like into the wind. They're gone. They disappeared for sure, you know. And as the investigation continued, they started going to other sites of this church across Uganda. Starting 3 days before this fire was even set, they started finding bodies at these other sites. They found 6 bodies at one site. They found 103 bodies at another site. They found 155 at another, and 81 at another, and just on and on and on. And I'm sorry, I said 3 days. I meant 3 weeks. This was 3 weeks prior to the start of that fire. Okay. It was just devastating. And it was so devastating that at first, the first number that they gave out was in the thousands. In the thousands. Now you said there was what, 900 and what at Jonestown?
916.
916. Now we're in the thousands with this one. But after a couple of days of investigating, they said, that number is a little bit high. Okay? We're going to back it down some. So the final death toll that was settled on was 924. Not quite 1,000, but it was 924. How this got by me and I never heard about it is a mystery to me to this day. I mean, the only thing I can think of is it was overshadowed by Jonestown, which happened pretty much around the same time, you know? And that's the only way I could figure it out. But, you know,
so
I mean,
I'm gonna cut you off for a second because
okay.
Upon hearing about this particular one in Uganda, I have looked up, you know, pictures briefly and checked it out. I will say that right now I just pulled it up and I am looking at some of these pictures, and one of the most mind-baffling things is there are numerous pictures of this building that they were in, and there are bodies all over the ground, charred bodies, and there are children peeking in through the windows.
Yeah.
Looking at them, you know? Yeah. And, like, I mean, to be honest, I think the most unnerving thing is the kids don't look really phased. There's one child his nose because I can only imagine the smell, but you know, it's just like,
but you know,
like I mean, they were in the middle of their own you know, trials and war then, so I'm sure these kids were kind of desensitized to it in a sense, but oh my goodness,
I mean, this was, you know, these kids saw nothing but, from the time they're born, you know, death and destruction all around them, you know, with the war going on and AIDS going on, and it was just, you know.
And I mean, I'm sure I can only imagine how many kids, because back then, and I mean, they still do it now, but there was a major thing with children soldiers. Children would be kidnapped and trained as soldiers in the battlefield. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was just amazing. And like I said, I don't know how this slipped by me. And there's so much more, to go into with this. But I'm just skimming the surface, and I'm giving you the rough outline of what happened. Anybody out
Yeah.
there is interested in looking into this, it's easy to find. Go check it out. Dig a little deeper. Um,
Yep.
but the fact of the matter is, that was probably, I think probably the big two, right there is Jonestown and that one. And it's absolutely terrifying, um, to to look at this stuff
It is.
and think that these people get sucked into this, and a lot of them, it's against their will. And um, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I've never been in that situation, um, other than being introduced to Christianity, which is a whole nother thing for me. But
Yeah.
um, it. Uh, I just cannot wrap my head around what would make you do that. I mean, and I've seen so much of it. You see it all the time. And granted, it doesn't seem to be as prevalent, I guess, these days, as you know as much to the forefront of everything going on. But I mean,
Yeah.
you know, I don't know,
Well,
and I don't know why, because people are so pissed off right now everywhere, about everything, that I don't know why you don't see more of these. And if they are going on, I haven't heard about them. I don't know if in your neck of the woods things are
so
happening, but
no, nothing really crazy here. But you know, the government, or the state and church, government and church. If you notice, without getting too political, especially with everything else that's going on in the world right now, the government and the church, they coincide very well together. They do. They work very well together. So I believe, and I mean, granted, um, you know, the cults in a sense like Jonestown, and the movement for the restoration of the Ten Commandments, um, are different from Judaism, Catholicism, Christianity. But I believe that stuff like this probably still is going on, and we're not hearing about it only because um, the minute that you hear about a cult, all religion is questioned now, and the government just cannot have that, because right now religion is the crutch for the government. And that's all I'm going to say about that.
yeah, let's not get too political. Yeah, you and I both have
No,
very strong political
that's
opinions on
yeah,
things that are going
that's
on
not
right
what
now.
the
So
channel. Yeah, that's not what this podcast is about. Not the only reason why I even brought it up was because I was answering the question as far as
yeah,
what why you may not hear about it.
right,
And I mean, it is a valid theory.
right. And yeah, I can understand that completely, 100%. But
Mm-hmm.
it's I don't know. I don't know what the next big one is going to be. I can almost predict that there will be another one, and it's going to branch off of what's going on in the world right now. I mean, it's there's going to be a new cult started just to save the people that are just totally disgruntled with everything. And not only in the United States, but in the world as a whole. They're just tired of everything. So there's going to be something else pop up. I just know it. Just if you're listening, be careful, please. Just watch your step, because you can get
Stay
sucked into
educated.
stuff so easy.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're talking about over 2,000 lives lost in just two events that we've talked about tonight, and there's a lot more, a lot more. Do your research. There's a bunch of them out there. There's.
Mhm.
I remember when we were talking about doing this show, I was running down a list of different suicide murder cults, and you were going, I'd never heard of them. I don't know, I've never heard of them. There's that many out there. Some of them don't get very big, some of them get very big, and we covered the two. We did the Super Bowl of murder and suicide cults. But do your research, guys, before you get in over your head. That's the main thing. Watch yourselves. You, we don't want to see anything bad happen to anybody.
No,
Um,
no.
but
Question everything. Question
absolutely,
everything. So even
absolutely.
if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. It's
All right. Well, listen, babe. That's all I got. You got anything else you want to talk about?
Uh, there are probably two or three more we could talk about, but we could very well lead that into an episode three.
Sure.
Just just to keep you guys, on your toes and excited for the next one. Because
Right.
who doesn't love a good suicide cult? Come on.
Exactly. And just to let you guys know what we're looking at in the future, I have talked to a uh, producer of paranormal shows that said he would love to come on and talk to us. I have talked to an author of paranormal books, murder books, factual murder books, who said she would love to come on with us. I have talked to a number of witches, both uh, um, of the white magic and the black magic side, who said they would love to come on and talk to us. So there's a whole bunch of stuff going on out there that we have not even tapped into yet. We are just getting
Absolutely.
started, okay? So hang in and tune in, because you never know what's going to happen next around here.
Absolutely. And I myself, I have quite a few people up my sleeve now uh, with different psychic abilities, some that you haven't even heard of, I'm sure, because I was mind blown and had to question what they said and what exactly it was. So we definitely will cover that on future shows. Um, got anything else you'd like to add?
That's it. Let's tuck these spookies in and go to bed.
All right, that sounds perfect to me.
Hey, if they're looking for us, where can they find us?
If you guys are looking for us, you can find us at Transcending Fails Podcast on Facebook. You can also find us on Instagram, Transcending Fails Podcast. If you're looking for either myself or D.E. Riley, you can find him on TikTok or Instagram, both at Not Really Willie. And you can find me on TikTok and Instagram at Audra Moon underscore, and my Instagram is at the Audra Moon. So we look forward to hearing from you guys. Also, if you would like to send us an email, feel free to send us an email um, at transcendingveils@gmail.com, and we look forward to hearing from you. Um, so yeah, pleasant
Absolutely.
nightmares.
Hell yeah. Follow us on one of those platforms or all of those platforms. Give us your 2 cents worth. We're grown ups. We can take it. We'd love to hear from you.
Absolutely. But it has been fabulous, fabulous doing our first segment of the suicide cults. And I look forward to doing so many more disturbing things.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Audra, I am going to bid you a farewell, my dear. You take care of yourself, and we will talk again real soon.
Sounds great to me. Good night, guys.
All right, you guys, keep her spooky, right? That's what we're here for. You guys take care of one another. Bye bye.